Okay, hi guys. We're doing trig functions. We're starting with 2018 November. It is generally a more difficult paper, pre-COVID standards, so it does take a little bit of effort, but let's try and do as many papers as we can. 5.1 says sketch on the grid in the answer book the graph of f for 0 less than x, which is less than 360. Show all the intercepts and show all the asymptotes. Now, drawing graphs is going to take a little bit of time, so I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to start off with mode. You're going to press mode. You're going to press table. In your calculator, it depends on which one it is. Table. We're going to enter in 3, so it's going to be minus 3 tan x into f of x. Okay. Minus 3 tan x. That's minus 3 tan of x. G of x, you're going to press equal. We don't need a g of x. We're going to start at where they told us to start at 0. And we're going to end at 360. Now, the steps are important because when it comes to steps, start is 0, end is 360. When it comes to stepping, I prefer to step in 30s for sine and cos. But it depends on the graph paper that they give you. But for tan will always step in 45s. So when you step in 45s, we get a good graph. We get 0 is 0. We get 45 is minus 3. We get 90 is error. 135 is 3. 180 is 0. 225 is minus 3. 270 is error. 315 is 3. And 360 is 0. Now, guys, I'm not going to attempt to draw this because I use a graphic tablet and I'm not really good at drawing on the screen. I am going to take it from the marking guideline. Just to show you how it's drawn, it's not difficult to draw with a ruler, pen and paper, but it would look like this, okay? It's quite simple to do as well. I don't want to give you guys an untidy drawing because you can use this video to learn. But we could see that we started. It's really important to know that we started at 0. We ended at 360. It's also important to know that this is called an asymptote. We need to remember that. This is the asymptote that's here. My color is not working. That's the asymptote. That's important. And the other points that are important would be the x and y intercepts. There's the x-intercept. There's the y-intercept. There's the x-intercept. There's the x-intercept, okay? So this graph doesn't have many critical points. I would say the 3 x-intercepts, the 1 y-intercept, everything's given to us here. The 2 asymptotes, those are the important parts, okay? So again, this would be 0 and 0. That's important. This would be 180 and 0. That's really important. This would be 360 and 0. That's important. And you could pick other points. You can specifically pick other points where the graph is passing through. Like you could go down to, as they did, you can go down to minus 3 and see where it touches. You can go up to positive 3 and see where it touches. It depends on the points that you pick. But it would be quite easy because they gave you the points in the question. So my table would have looked like this, just to show you guys that we would have had x. We would have had f of x. It would have been 0 and 0. It would have been 45 and minus 3. It would have been 90 and error. The reason it's an error is the asymptote. The tan graph will never touch at that point. It would have been 135 and 3. It would have been 180 and 0. Guys, please remember that these are the x and y points. 225 and minus 3. 270 and error. Those are the 2 asymptotes with tan graphs. 315, and 3, and 360, and 0. So that's what I got from my calculator. Of course, you're not going to have a marking guideline to go through, so please plot properly. But other than that, this should be an easy question. Now, the plotting is fine. What is the period of a tan graph, or of this graph specifically? I need you to understand that tan is not like sine and cos, where it goes full graph 360, or the full graph is 180. The tan graph has its full period. The full graph is here in the center of the two asymptotes. So for the tan graph, we could say the period is 180. Now, I would like you to know that the period is how long it takes for a graph to complete one full cycle. On this document, we have all of the tan, sine, and cos graphs. And the next one says, what happens if H is a reflection? Okay, the equation of H, if H is a reflection of F across the x-axis. Now, we know in the Cartesian plane, these are our positive numbers, our negative numbers, our positive y, our negative y, right? That's y and x, that's x and y. So when something flips across the x-axis, what changes? The only thing that would change is the y value. Now, it's very simple to do the question like this because I know f of x equals to minus 3 tan x. If I swap it on the x-axis, so again, if you swap on the x-axis, the y value changes. And if you swap on the y-axis, the x value changes. Okay? So let's just try and draw it here. Let's make this minus y. And then y value becomes minus x. That's when we swap. So for here, we're swapping the x value on the x-axis. So we make the y value minus. And it is quite simple to solve. It's just that I have no space, so I'm going to try and move that a little bit down. Okay, let's try and write a bit smaller. So this would be y equals to minus 3 tan x. Therefore, minus y equals to minus 3 tan x. And y would equal to a positive 3 tan x. And that would be how we get the swap. When we reflect a graph on the x-axis, the y value becomes minus. Now, if we move on to the next question, it doesn't seem like it's too easy, but generally it is. Generally, this question is fine. It isn't too difficult to deal with, but the first question says this is a cos graph, and we know that cos graphs look like this. Again, I apologize, my graphs are bad. So it looks like that. Therefore, this cos graph is upside down. That means it's reflected. It's a change. Now, if it's a change, we know that the amplitude A stands for the amplitude. And we know that the amplitude is equal to 2. But because it's a reflection, A is equal to minus 2. Because a normal cos graph looks like that, and that will be a 2, let's say 2 amplitude. But this is the opposite, so it'll be minus 2. Now, as for B, B would be the period of the graph. If we look at it, the period of this graph is 360 because we start at 0 and we end at 360. So what does that mean? That means that I could have taken 360 divided by B, and I know already that B is equal to 1. The reason I know B is equal to 1 is because the period of the graph is always going to be equal to 360 divided by K. Now, we don't have any of the answers, but I know that B is standard. Because it is a period of 360, B has to be 1. Because if it was a period of 180, B would have to be 2. And it continues in that way. So again, we can go with, let's go with this formula, 360 divided by B equals to the period. Okay. Now, if the period is 360, so this would be 360 divided by B equals to 360, and no matter how you solve this, b is going to equal to 1. But guys, you can memorize a few things. If the period is 180, b is going to be equal to 2. If the period is 360, b is going to be equal to 1. And it can double. 720 would be half, but for now, it's good enough. Using the graph, they want us to determine x for which g of x is bigger than 0. So what that means is that g of x is just a normal graph. All I have to say is, where is this graph bigger than 0? And it's bigger than 0 here. All of the red parts. So g of x greater than 0 means where the graph is above the x-axis. So if we look at the picture, the only place the graph is above the x-axis is in between 90 and 270. And that would be the trig function for that. That would be the answer for where x is greater than 0. If we look at the next part, it says determine the range of h. So I'd like you to know that h is a new graph. It's not part of this. So determine the range of h if h is the image of g. And if g is shifted down 2 units. Very simple to deal with. Very simple to deal with, because now all we have to do is write our graph. So our g graph, g of x, is equal to minus 2 cos of 1x, or 1 theta, or whatever they have here, 1 theta. All right, we don't have to write the 1 theta, but we're just writing it down. Now they said h of x is the exact same graph. It's just that, how do I put it? It's just that the graph is shifted 2 units down. Okay? Now this should be quite simple. It should be really, really simple. They're not asking for the formula. But if they did ask for the formula, h of x would equal to minus 2 cos of 1 theta, and 2 units down would be minus 2. Now, how do I get the range? The range of this graph, remember guys, they did not ask for this. I'm just giving it here. The range of this graph would be minus 2 to 2. The reason is the graph starts at the lowest part, minus 2, and ends at the highest part of 2. So all we have to do to get this is minus 2 from both sides, because we're shifting the graph down. So the new range would be minus 4 and 0. Again, the old range was starting at minus 2, ending at 2, because that's the lowest point was minus 2, and the highest point was 2. But now, because we're moving the entire graph 2 units down, minus 2 becomes minus 4, but also 2 becomes 0, because we're moving everything 2 units down. Okay? Now they want us to determine, using the graph, the value of minus 2 into cos 0 plus cos 1 plus cos 2. Okay, guys. The next question seems like it's a level 4. It is in understanding. But we need to understand that every single cos graph and every single point is symmetric. It has a counterpart. So I want you guys to start to understand that cos 0 has a counterpart at cos 180. So it means cos 0 is 1, cos 180 is minus 1. And then it continues, because cos of 1, I mean, we're not supposed to really use a calculator, but cos at 1 is positive, if I'm not mistaken. Positive, I'm just giving you an example, positive 0.9998. And then cos at 181 is negative 0.9998. So there's a counterpart, because cos moves like this, and we'll count it in half. So from 0 to the 180 part would be all of our positive numbers, as an example. And from 180 there would be all of our negative counterparts. Now, the only one that doesn't have a counterpart would be the cos of 360 and this one. So again, we don't need to panic, right? Because even if I wrote out a few hundred, if I rotate a few of them, we could see we're starting at cos 0 and we're ending at cos 360. So altogether, that's 361 terms. Now, I guarantee you that 360 of them cancel out, right? They cancel out because we're going to start to, if we start to group them up, we can go with cos 0. Let me double check with cos of, okay, cool. Cos 0, cos 180, cos 1, cos 181. And we're going to continue all the way until we go to cos of 359, 359, and cos, let me double check again. I don't want to give it anything wrong. Okay, cool. Cos of 179. So all of this does not matter. All I'm telling you that is one is positive, one is negative, it's going to cancel out. Right? I did say left-hand side, I use this picture to try and explain that it's going to counterpart as positive and negative. That's not really all positive and all negative. What I'm trying to say is every value on this side has a counterpart on this side that's going to cancel it out. So it's not always going to be positive and negative exactly, but it will cancel out. The only one that's outstanding is 360. So all of this nonsense cancels out, and we only left with minus 2 into cos of 360. And cos of 360 is 1. So this equals to minus 2. That would be the final answer. Guys, again, if you've never seen this question, it's not something that's just easy. You are going to panic and stress a bit, but that's fine because we're going to memorize. You're going to see this question quite often. It would be good for you to memorize. Okay, we can start to look at the next part, which is generally easy. Determine the equation of f. Now, f is a very simple question. There's nothing difficult with f. It's quite simple. We know this is definitely a cos graph. There's no value in front of x, so there's no period. But 4.1 states cos, we can go with y equals to a cos x. Okay, now the period stays the same, and a stands for the amplitude. We know this is amplitude. And I can look at the graph and look at the amplitude is 1. But even if you didn't know that, amplitude is always equal to the highest. You take the biggest point plus the smallest point divided by 2 in this graph. So we can see it's 1 plus 1. We're not worried about the negative 1 because that's just the direction of the graph. It's 1 plus 1 divided by 2 equals to 1. But you could also see that the highest point in the graph from there is 1. So we can use it as 1. So the graph is y equals to 1 cos x. Yes, some of the times your teachers would tell you it doesn't matter, you don't have to put the 1. They're correct, you don't. It's up to you. I prefer seeing the 1 there so I know. You guys don't have to do that. Now, when it comes to 4.2, 4.2 is also quite simple. 4.2 says write down the coordinates of A and B. Now, for A, we don't know everything. And for B, we don't know everything. But we do know that it's the x-intercept. That would be 0 and 0. And this, we could memorize if you wanted to. Or you could put into the calculator. If we do our entire formula, we do mode, we do table, we put in cos x, we start at 0, we end at 360, and we can step in 30th. And if you did it correctly, you would see it's quite simple. You would see that the graph crosses A at 90 and crosses B at 270. But even if you did not memorize it, all you had to do was use your calculator. Again, mode, table, f of x would be cos x, g of x would be nothing, press equal, start at 0, end at 360, step in 30s, and press equal. It would end up as A is 90 and B is 270. Why? Because these are the x-intercepts. They cut the x line. 4.3. State the range of f. The range of f would be between the lowest point to the highest point. So the range would be, you could put -1 is less than y, which is less than 1, less than or equal to, because it starts actually at -1. You could put it in brackets as well, the -1 and 1, but I'm not going to be too fussy. Y is an element of -1 and 1. It depends on what the teachers taught you guys. But again, the range is the y values. Remember that. The range is the y values from the lowest to the highest. Okay. Now, the period of the graph, period stands for how long it takes for one complete graph. So one complete graph. It's how long it takes for this graph to have a complete cycle, because sometimes we could have a sine graph that looks like that. Sometimes we could have a sine graph that looks like that. But it depends on where the sine graph ends, because that would be two sine graphs. So for example, this might be a 360 period, and this might be a 180 period. I made up this, and it's not drawn to scale, but I'm trying to show you that the period of this graph should be 360, because it starts at 0, and it takes 360 degrees to finish. So the period is 360 degrees. 4.5. Determine the values of x for which f of x is less than or equal to 0. Now what that means is f of x needs to be smaller than the x line. It needs to be below the x line. It needs to be below 0. So it's all of this, right? And this is the point where f of x is smaller than 0 or equal to, because they said equal. So again, this would be x is smaller than 0. It's going to be x is greater than or equal to 90, less than or equal to 270. Right? Determine the equation of g of x. If g of the graph is reflected, or if g is the graph of f reflected across the x-axis and shifted down 2 units. Now, guys, this one we don't have to panic. Let's start again. I want you guys to look at reflections. This is a Cartesian plane. This is x, and that's y. Okay? Let's pick a random point over here. We're going to pick a point as 2 and 5. Right? When I reflect on the y-axis, you can see that's x and y. What's going to happen is that the x value is going to change, and the y value will stay the same. When I reflect on the x-axis, the x value stays the same, but the y value changes to the opposite. So here we can see it reflected across the x-axis, so we know the y value is important. Shifted 2 units down, so it's -2. It's quite a simple question. It's really, really, really simple. All we have to do is say, okay, g of x, all we have to say is f of x is equal to 1 cos x. That's fine. It's reflected on the x-axis. That means the y value changes to -y. F of x and y is the same thing, guys, so I don't want you all to panic. And that equals to 1 cos x. And then when we divide by -1 to solve, we get f of x equals to -1 cos x, because all we have to do is take the -1 over. Now we must not forget that they said the graph is also shifted 2 units down, so that's -2. And this would be our new graph. This should be our new graph for g of x. All it is a reflection, so the amplitude becomes minus. Guys, when you're reflecting on the x-axis, the amplitude becomes minus, and we're shifting 2 units downwards, so it's going 2 down. Okay, guys, this is November 2023. Generally, it is a simple paper. It's not too difficult. The first question wants us to sketch these two graphs. They gave us the starting. and the endpoint. They gave us the steps. We got the steps is 30th. They gave us both graphs. You can sketch both at the same time. You can sketch it differently. The thing is, let's go and do it. I think I'll do this one. We're going to go mode. We're going to go table. F of x is 3 sine x. Guys, the alpha is where the x is. I'm going to do both at the same time. G of x is 2 cos x. And then it's plus 1. Start at 0. End at 360. Step in 30th. Right, so we're going to go with 0 and 0 and 0. 30 and 1.5 is generally there. 60 and 2.5, that's 2, that's 2.5. Just above 2.5. 90 and 3, that's the max, if I'm not mistaken, unless I made a mistake. 120 and 2.5, somewhere there. That one should match there, 1.5 at 150. 180 and 0. Okay, cool. 210 and minus 1.5. 240 and minus 2.5. If you notice, each one got a counterpart, just like the other question that we did. 270 and 3, minus 3 actually. And then it just counterparts. Okay, so this is the one graph. I would never be able to draw this graph accurately because the graphic tablet is quite difficult to draw with, but that's the best I can do. That's f of x equals to 3 sine x. If I do the other one, let's start again. If I do the other one, we get 0 and 3. 30 and 2.732, 2.7 should be somewhere there. 60 and 2. 90 and 1. 120 and 0. 150 and minus 7, 0.7. Guys, again, mine's not very accurate. 180 and minus 1. Okay, that one's starting to be a counterpart there. That should be 240, should be its counterpart as 0. 270 should be the counterpart at 1. 360 should be the counterpart at 2 on the dot. 330 should match this point somewhere there, and 360 should end off by 3. We did this question in the level 4 question where each part had a counterpart. Again, I apologize that my graph is not really accurate. That's the best I can do there, but g of x equals to 2 cos x plus 1. Okay. Now, if we look at this, what is the amplitude of the g graph? The amplitude of the g graph should be, even though we can calculate it by taking 3 plus 1 divided by 2. Why do we do that? Highest point is 3. Lowest point is 1. Remember, we're not talking about the minus 1. We're talking about the 1. And that equals to 2. But we didn't need to do that because this value is for, this value is the amplitude. Okay? Now, the next one is what would be the period of f? The period of f would be how long it takes for the graph to complete. And for f, which is the sine graph, I can see that the period is 1 because this value would be the period. The number in front of the x is the period. But even before that, if you guys learn to look at the graphs, if we learn give me a moment. If we learn to look at the graphs and see that it takes 360 degrees to complete, you'll understand. But if we look at the number in front of x, we also know that that is the period. Now, the next question might seem like it's level 4. It might seem like it's level 4, but it's not. It's not really difficult. What we can do is we can take g of x minus f of x, and they want you to equal to 4. So guys, in a very, very, very simple way, all they're telling you to do is, hey, look at the g graph, which is the red graph in our case. Look at the purple graph, the f graph, and minus the points and see if we can get 4. Let's try. 3 minus 0 is 3. Doesn't work out. Let's try. This would be, what is this? Oh, okay, this one. This would be 1 minus 3 minus 2. Doesn't work out. Let's try this one. Minus 1 minus 0. Doesn't work out. Let's try this one. This is minus 3 minus 1. Ooh, might be a problem there. Okay, no. Actually, the red graph is first. 270. Okay, I think I found it mistakenly. Well, I mean, it was on purpose, but if we look at this part of the graph, if we look at this, this is 1. If we look at this, this is minus 3. Let's go and do it. They told us g of x minus f of x must equal to 4. So g of x in this question is 1 minus f of x is minus 3, and that equals to 4. So we know the answer is x equals to 270. Because we just proved that x equals to 270. We did it. The last one is they want f of x times g of x, and it must give you a positive value. So if we look at this graph again, let me take out all of this nonsense because you guys can write it in your own graphs. Right? All I need is I need g of x, right? I need g of x. I need to multiply it by f of x, and it must give me any value that's 0 or bigger than 0. So guys, we have to be, let's start with here. All of these 0 points are winning points for us. Everything on the 0 is winning points because all of that's fine. Let's start, right? For us to get a positive value, because greater than 0 is positive, we need to have positive times positive. That's basic algebra. For us to have a negative value, it's positive times negative, but we can also have negative times negative. So let's look at where positive and positive is. If I look at positive and positive, it's only in between there. This is where both graphs is positive, right? So I know that actually x, so it'll start at 0 and it would end at 120. Again, no matter what value you take from this green part, I think green's not the right color, but no matter what value you take from this yellow part, if you multiply the y values of any point, it will give you a positive value. Why? Because positive times positive is positive. Now the next one is tricky. The next one is tricky because we don't have much help, but if we look at this, this part is negative and negative. So negative times negative is positive. So between, let's go with or, 180 is, the x is greater than or equal to 180 or less than or equal to 240. Now guys, I'm going to go and explain one more time. The question wanted, they wanted you to take the f graph, multiply by the g graph, and it must equal to 0 or a positive number. We know basic math. anything that you multiply, if it's positive, it's going to give you a positive value. So the only part in the graph that is completely positive is here. Because I want you to look at the rest of it. If you look at all of this, this is positive and negative. That doesn't work out. This is positive and negative. That doesn't work out. This doesn't work out. The only other part that matters is here. That part matters. Why does it matter? Let me take out this yellow crosses as well. I think let's use an ugly color, or let's use a different color. All of this does not fit because it's positive and negative. If they asked you f of x times g of x gives you a negative value, wherever the green cross is, that would give you the negative value. But wherever the yellow is, would be a positive value. Guys, I understand this is level 4, but we will have to do a teaching lesson on this very soon. Okay, the next paper that we deal with should be, if I'm not mistaken, it was a November 20 something paper. I think it was 2019. I'll confirm. I know it is November. I'll just confirm whether it's 2019. Double check. I don't give you guys any wrong information. Yes, it was 2019. Now this was COVID. I think the papers were okay then. Wasn't too bad. After this, papers became very easy. But we'll start off with this graph. It's quite simple. Sketch below is the graph of f of x equals to 2 cos x and sine x minus 1, right? The interval is 0 to 270, so I can see it's not a full graph. But guys, just by looking at this, I can see the cos graph has an amplitude of 2. And it has a period of 360. Guys, a shortcut for the period is look at the number in front of x. I'll give you an example. This is more grade 11, but look at the number in front of x. This is 1. So all you do is take the full period 360 divided by 1. So the period is 360. If it was 2, we would divide by 2. And guess what? The period's 180. If this number in front of x was 3, I would divide by 3. And the period is 120. But it's not. It's 1. So the period is 1. That's just a shortcut that you can deal with. So the period of graph f, because the number is 1, f is the other side. Because the number is 1, 360 divided by 1 is 360. And that's what the period of this graph is, 360 degrees. Okay, this is a double question because I screenshot it like that. What is the range of G? So I go to the G graph. G is here. Okay, cool. So the range of G is quite simple to deal with because G is here, if I'm not mistaken. And the range would be the lowest part of the graph, which is there, to the highest part of the graph, which is there. So the range would start at -2. There's many ways we could write it. Y is the element of square brackets starting at -2 and ending at 0. Because the range is talking about where do we start the lowest point to the highest point. Now they want the number of solutions. They don't want anything else. I want you to pay attention. They want the number of solutions where f of x equals to g of x. The only time f of x can equal to g of x is when the graphs are touching. So you don't even have to calculate the x because they didn't want the x. If they wanted the x, it would be 90. And this value is around 225, but it's not. But they don't want it. They want the number of solutions. What is the answer to this question? It's 2 solutions because the only part that f of x touches x, f of x touches g of x is when they are equal, right? For which values of x in the interval, now this one is tricky. Again, pay attention. They want f multiplied by g must be greater than or equal to 0. So all we have to do is think, hey, how do I get positive values? How do you get a positive value? You take positive multiplied by positive, or you take negative multiplied by negative. So all we have to do is go and look, where is both graphs on the positive side? Where is both graphs on the negative side? I'm going to remove all of the color I put, but you guys got in the video, so you can always go back. Where is both graphs positive? There is no place. This is not both positive. That's positive and negative. Where is both graphs negative? Now, the both graphs start negative there. And here. So all of this is what I'm looking for, because both graphs are negative at that point. So it's going to start at 90 and end at 270, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of ways we could write this. X is an element of close square brackets 90 to 270. Or you could write it properly. X is greater than or equal to 90, less than or equal to 270. But that's what it means, guys. If it was less than 0, if that was less than 0, then we need positive and negative. So where you see the X, that would be my answer, between 90 and 0. But it's not. And the last one, I like these questions. H is obtained by reflecting the graph across the x-axis. We did a few of them. Again, if the graph is reflected across the x-axis, the y value changes. The amplitude changes to the opposite value. But let's go and look at f. Where is f? F is already 2 cos theta. So f of x equals to 2 cos x. They said that h of x is just reflected, right? But it's h of x is created. You know what, guys? I think I did make a mistake here because I'm looking at the wrong graph here. Sorry. This would be g. Technically, g of x is equal to sine x minus 1. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky. This is where things get a little bit tricky because they told us that h is a new graph. See this graph? It's a new graph. But we get it when we reflect g across the x-axis. Now, we learned this twice today or 3 times today. When you reflect on the x-axis, the y value changes to the opposite. So from here, going there, the y value changes to the opposite. What does that mean? That means, listen, guys, minus g of x is equal to sine x minus 1. All I have to do is solve for the minus 1, divide by minus 1, divide by minus 1. G of x, which is the new h of x, is equal to minus sine x plus 1. And that should be fine. Now, the truth is, did they want the equation? They didn't want the equation, to be honest. So it's fine. I just want you to calculate the equation. That would be the equation. But it is quite simple. It's quite simple because you and I could work very easily. Okay? Because they said they want the minimum turning point. Right? So pay attention, guys. This is the G graph. At the moment, this is the maximum turning point, and that is the minimum. This is the minimum, and that is the maximum. If we reflect the graph, it's going to swap around. This is going to end up being the minimum, and that's going to end up being the maximum. And that's what happens when we swap. So there was no need to even panic because we can use the points, right? We could use the points, and it would be 90 and what do I make it? Yeah, it would be 90 and 0. So this here would become the minimum. This would become the maximum. It would swap. So the minimum, because the max was 90 and 0, the minimum would now be 90 and 0. We would redo a question like this, some theory for this question, but that's the end of this question. Okay, guys, this would be 2017. This would be 2017 in November. And we got lucky, but this question that we just did, and this question is exactly the same, but the difference is in this question, they gave us the graph. In this question, they want us to sketch the graph. This graph would end up exactly the same as here. It is the exact replica of the question. These ones can be completed as well, quite simply, because it's the exact question from before. The number of solutions is 2 as well. It's the exact question. The only part that would be a little bit different would be the level 4 part that's here. Okay, they want sine x to equal to 2 plus 2 cos x. Right? Now, look at this. The only question that differs from the previous question that we did was this one. I think this is the level 4 question, okay? Now look at it. All we have to do is say, hey, sine x equals to 2 plus 2 cos x, right? Now, if we go and solve this, it should be very, very, very easy to deal with, but also it can become difficult. It can become difficult because there's a lot of level 4 questions that you guys did not understand from November papers. So I don't think you guys learned this as yet. Okay, guys, we're debating if this is in a September test that you guys are writing, but it's not. But it is what it is. Let's do it. You see, if we did this entire question, which we didn't, we skipped most of it, but the graph does look like this, okay? It shouldn't be anything that we should panic for. But we can solve it quite simply, right? You're not supposed to solve this with like any clever math or any really good algebra. You're supposed to use the 2 graphs that we drew. We don't have the 2 graphs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this graph. What was supposed to happen was we were supposed to use this graph. Let's try and copy it. Okay. So we were supposed to use this graph that we drew. Now, again, this was just a copy of the other question, right? And they added one level 4 question. So we use this graph and it's fine, right? Now, the problem is this graph, f of x equals to something else. F of x equals to sine x minus 1. And g of x equals to 2 cos x. Now, these two don't look the same. They don't look the same. But the first thing we should do is mess around with the equation. We need to shuffle the equation around until we can get g and f of x. So we need to shuffle the equation around until we can get this and this in this equation. Now, again, it's not any smart math, but it is quite simple. Okay. So what I would do is I am making up my own kind of equation here to try and get it. And let's try and make it the same. If I move, let's say, shuffle, 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 shuffle. Okay, so if I minus 1 from this equation, both sides, right? So I'm minusing 1 from both sides. I end up with sine x minus 1 equals to 1 plus 2 cos x. Now I'm happy. Why am I happy? Because I just minused 1, it looks like f of x. Okay, cool. Now let's try and solve it. Sine x minus 1 minus 2 cos x equals to 1. Why am I happy now? I'm happy because 2 cos x looks like it's g of x. And the fact that I got f of x minus g of x is quite simple. Because now the graph is quite simple. F of x minus g of x must equal to 1. Okay? Now, if we look at that, what does f of x minus g of x equal to 1? It means I need to find the spot in the graph where f is exactly sitting 1 block higher than the other one. So when I take the f graph and I minus the g graph, it's going to give me it's going to give me 1. So if I look at F, let's draw here. If I look at F at 180, F is -1. If I look at G at 180, guys, my line's not very straight. G is -2. So -1 minus a -2 is +1. So this answer is X equals to 180. I know this question is not easy to understand. We will do a lot of these theory questions in the teaching lessons as well, but this is just an exam paper lesson. But this should be the end of 2017 again. 2017 was just a repeat of the previous paper, 2019. In the next lesson, we'll do September of 2017, and we'll do 25, 24, and 23.